Hello, everyone. Today, I would like to invite you to slow down a little bit to listen to the story of a special human being. Perhaps in the rush of daily news, we often just skim past the headlines. But today, we will dive deep into the life of a witness to history. This man has just left our world, leaving behind a massive legacy of courage and truth. His name is Peter Arnett. If you do not know, Peter Arnett was one of the greatest war correspondents of the 20th century. He passed away at the age of 90. But the story about him is not a story about death or separation, but a story about a person who spent his entire life rushing into the most dangerous places that others tried to flee from just to bring back the most authentic stories to the world. I want to tell you about his journey from the tropical jungles of Vietnam to the fiery nights in Baghdad, so that we can understand what the price of truth really looks like. Let us start the story in the 1960s, when Peter Arnett was still a young man from New Zealand. Imagine a young man not particularly tall, but with sharp eyes and a rare kind of grit. At that time, he worked for the AP news agency and was sent to Vietnam. Vietnam, at that time, was the center of the world, the place where the war was escalating day by day. Unlike many reporters of that time, who often just sat in Saigon listening to military press briefings that journalists jokingly called the 5 o'clock follies, Peter Arnett chose a different path. He chose to go to the battlefield. He waded through mud with the soldiers, he slept in the jungle under tropical rains, and he witnessed death right before his eyes. He wanted to see the naked truth, not dry statistics on paper. There is a famous story associated with his name during the Tet Offensive in 1968. At that time, in Ben Tre, after a fierce battle, the city was almost leveled by bombs and bullets. Peter Arnett interviewed an American major, and that officer said a sentence that later became one of the most haunting quotes about the brutality of war. That person said that it became necessary to destroy the town to save it. That quote was put in the newspapers by Arnett, and it shocked the entire United States. It made the American people start to ask themselves about the true meaning of this war, whether it was reasonable to destroy a place just to liberate it. Thanks to such courage and honest articles, Peter Arnett won the prestigious Pulitzer Prize in 1966. He showed the world the true face of war, not through the lens of winners or losers, but through the lens of pain and loss. But the story of Peter Arnett did not stop in Vietnam. Time passed, the world changed, and technology changed too. By 1991, when the Gulf War broke out, Peter Arnett once again became the center of attention, but this time on a completely new stage, which was live television. At this time, he had moved to work for CNN. Imagine the context then. It was the night of January 16, 1991, in the capital city of Baghdad in Iraq. Most Western journalists had left for fear of the bombs about to fall, but Peter Arnett, along with two other colleagues, decided to stay. They stayed at the Al Rashid Hotel, right in the heart of the enemy's capital. When the first bombs of the American military began to fall, the sky over Baghdad lit up with streaks of anti-aircraft fire, and Peter Arnett, with a satellite phone, reported live what was happening for the whole world to see. It was the first time in human history that people could sit in their safe living rooms and watch a war happening live on the other side of the hemisphere. Arnett's calm voice, sounding amidst the explosions and sirens, became the iconic sound of the era of 24-hour news. However, being an honest messenger is never easy. It was in this war that Peter Arnett faced the most intense controversies of his career. There is an event that I want to tell you in detail so you can see the thin line between truth and propaganda. It was the incident regarding the baby milk factory.
The story goes like this. The American military bombed a facility in Iraq that they claimed was a disguised biological weapons factory. But the Iraqi government said no, that was just a factory producing milk for children. Peter Arnett was taken to the scene by the Iraqi side. He saw the rubble, he saw cans of milk powder scattered everywhere, and the sign clearly stating it was a milk factory. He reported exactly what he saw. Immediately, he was fiercely criticized by the American public and the government. They called him a traitor, a propaganda mouthpiece for Saddam Hussein. People were outraged because they thought he was undermining the morale of the American troops. But Peter Arnett remained steadfast. He said that I am a reporter. My duty is to go to the place, observe, and tell what I see, not to judge who is right or wrong. Later, history still debated the truth about that factory, but Arnett's determined attitude to defend what he witnessed with his own eyes is a great lesson in journalism. The life of Peter Arnett also teaches us that no one is perfect, and even monuments can crumble. After the glory of the Pulitzer Prize and global fame, he also experienced painful failures. In 1998, he was involved in an investigative report called Operation Tailwind. This report alleged that the American military had used sarin gas, a deadly chemical weapon during the Vietnam War, to kill defectors. This was an extremely serious accusation. However, after airing, this report was found to lack solid evidence and was distorted. CNN had to retract the story and apologize. Although Peter Arnett said he was just the person reading the script and did not directly participate deeply in the investigation process, as the face of the report, he was fired. That was a huge shock. From a media hero, he became an outcast. But what I admire about Peter Arnett is that he did not give up. He did not retreat into hiding in shame. He continued working. He packed his backpack and went again. By 2003, when the second Iraq War broke out, he was in Baghdad again working for NBC. And once again, his outspoken mouth and frank views got him into trouble. In an interview with Iraqi state television, he gave an assessment that the initial American war plan had failed because of Iraqi resistance. This comment immediately caused an uproar in American public opinion. They thought he was cheering for the enemy right when American soldiers were fighting. And the result was that he was fired once again. Hearing this, you might think he was a failure or a troublemaker, but I see in that an astonishing consistency. Peter Arnett never changed. He was still that young reporter in Vietnam years ago who was willing to say difficult things as long as he believed it was the truth. He did not work to please the government or to be praised by the crowd. He worked to serve history. In the final years of his life, Peter Arnett lived more quietly. He participated in teaching journalism in China, writing books, and sharing experiences with the younger generation. When he passed away at his home in Oregon due to complications from a stroke, he left us not just articles or footage, but a spirit of living. His life was like a slow-motion movie about the history of modern warfare. He once interviewed the terrorist leader Osama bin Laden in a cave in Afghanistan in 1997, asking him about plans to attack America years before the September 11th events occurred. He was present at almost all the hotspots in the world. He was the one who saw both the brutality and the humanity of people in the harshest circumstances. When hearing the news of his death, many colleagues called him the best war correspondent of his generation, but I think the more important title he deserves is an honest storyteller. He understood that in war, truth is the first casualty to fall, and he spent his whole life trying to revive that casualty. He was not a saint. He made mistakes, he had times of incorrect judgment, and he had the pride of a star. But rising above all, he was the embodiment of courage. Courage to go into dangerous places, courage to speak against the crowd, and courage to stand up after falling. The story of Peter Arnett closes, but the questions he raised remain. In today's world, when fake news is rampant, when we are easily manipulated by misinformation, the spirit of Peter Arnett becomes more precious than ever. He reminds us never to accept the truth too easily, always ask questions, always seek, and always be brave to face reality, no matter how harsh it is. Now, I want to spend a little time for us to reflect on the application to ourselves.
After listening to the story of Peter Arnett's ups and downs, what can we learn and how can we apply it to our own lives? The first and most important lesson I draw is independent thinking and verifying information. In this era, we do not need to go to the battlefield to need this skill. Every day, opening our phones, we are flooded with thousands of pieces of information. How much of that is truth and how much is rumor or manipulation? Peter Arnett taught us not to rush to believe what others say, whether it is a powerful person or a noisy crowd. Find out for yourself. Look at the issue from many angles. If you hear a rumor about a colleague or a sensational news piece on the internet, slow down a beat. Ask why and where is the evidence? Become a direct observer of your own life rather than hearing it through others' words. The second lesson is the courage to speak your view. We may not face guns and bullets, but we often fear the pressure of friends, colleagues, or society. We fear being judged, fear being isolated, so we choose silence and going along with the flow. Peter Arnett dared to say things contrary to a huge war machine just because he believed it was the truth he saw. Applying to yourself, practice speaking your thoughts sincerely and constructively, even when it does not please the majority. That integrity will create your human value in the long run. The third lesson is the ability to stand up after failure. Peter Arnett reached the peak of fame, then was fired publicly and criticized heavily, not just once, but twice. But he did not let those failures define who he was. He continued to practice his profession, continued to contribute. In life, everyone will have times they stumble, times they are misunderstood or fail miserably. The important thing is not how hard you fall, but how you stand up and keep going. View failure as part of the journey, not the end. And finally is immersion. Peter Arnett did not sit in an air-conditioned room to write about war. He rushed into the bushes, waded into the mud. If you want to succeed in any field, whether business, art, or study, you must truly immerse yourself in it. Do not just learn empty theory. Start doing. Accept getting dirty. Accept risks. Only when you truly experience can you gain the most valuable lessons that no book can teach. The story of Peter Arnett is a powerful testament to living a full and passionate life. He lived as if every day was the last day to tell a story. I hope that through this story you will find a little fire for yourself, a little courage to live more authentically, a little resilience to overcome difficulties, and a little curiosity to explore this vast world. Thank you for taking the time to listen to the story today. I deeply appreciate your companionship in these past minutes. Stories about people like Peter Arnett are not just history, but lighthouses helping us navigate this volatile modern life. If you feel this story brought you a new perspective or a bit of inspiration, please share it with those around you. Perhaps this story of courage will help someone facing difficulties find more motivation to move forward. And I would also very much like to hear your thoughts. According to you, in this day and age, what is the price of truth, and what do we need to do to protect it? Please leave your thoughts. See you again in the next stories, where we will explore more meaningful lessons from life together. Wishing you a peaceful and steadfast day.